Hello again, everyone, and this is another lesson in my New Testament is Fake series. This is December 8th, 2018. This is lesson number 173. And my title for this lesson is New Testament Lemon Doctrine. You know, lemon, like when they say you got a bad car, they sold you a lemon. So now, I want to start out here reading from Isaiah 14:12. Just came to my mind recently because some people say Jesus is Lucifer that fell from heaven. That's what they say, but if it fits, it fits, you decide. Anyway, it says, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations?" Some people just say that's the wicked, but some say it's Jesus. Anyway, you understand that the New Testament gets you to believe in heaven real strong, whereas the Hebrews, they were more talking about life on earth, in their kingdom that was on earth. As you read even in Acts chapter 1 verse 6, when the disciples said to him, and it goes like this, "When they therefore were come together, they asked of him, saying, Lord, wilt thou at this time restore the kingdom to Israel?" So they were looking for a kingdom on earth. They weren't trying to go to heaven. But people today who believe in the New Testament keep focusing on going to heaven. And the New Testament, while the Old Testament does say some stuff about heaven, like Elijah going up in a whirlwind to heaven, and they try to get you to think that Enoch went to heaven, it seems kind of strange to me because I just don't know how people are going to live in heaven. What we know of people is that wherever you find people, they usually are traveling around exploring, and they build stuff. You're going to have infrastructure coming up, and they build tools and different stuff like that. What are they going to be building in heaven? How come you've never heard? Like Apostle Paul, who is frying and roasting in hell right now, probably, said he went up to third heaven, or wherever he went, or seventh heaven, wherever he said he went to. How come he never said he saw the great infrastructures that they're building in heaven? I mean, if John is seeing new heaven being built, coming down from heaven, and the angels, the cherubim in the Garden of Eden had a flaming sword, then obviously they have weapons which you would say is weapons in heaven. So somebody's building something up there, the angels. So how come when Paul went there, he never talked about any of the technology he saw? You look at UFOs and you think about their technology because they can fly halfway across the universe or galaxy, and technology comes to mind right away. We don't have any proof of it because we're not seeing the millions of spaceships that have crashed on Earth. They might show you Roswell and say it's a spacecraft that landed. But how about thousands or millions of spacecrafts that crashed from the millions and millions or billions of years of technologically advanced species living elsewhere in the cosmos, flying to Earth so much? Where are the millions of their crashed, damaged ships? Just like scattered all over Earth. You just find one. So, Apostle Paul never saw all these things that angels were creating in heaven. He never saw Israelites who went there like Elijah involved in anything where they're building up stuff, like they have factories, they're building stuff. But wherever you find humans, they're building, they're making stuff, they're making progress, they're inventing things. None of that seems to go on in heaven too tough. We know they got swords up there because angels were fighting and they had flaming sword of fire in Eden. They have vials that they're pouring out oil and so on, or pouring out prayers from John in the book of Revelation. So I think they've got some basic, simple stuff, but man has made more advanced items than angels have made. So earth is more advanced than heaven. So why you want to go to heaven? Right. Because the New Testament is convincing you that you should look forward to heaven, that you should dream of heaven, try to go to heaven, live right so you go to heaven. The New Testament is selling you a lemon doctrine about heaven. You're not going to know heaven. Hebrew Israelites have their dreams set on going back to Jerusalem when the Most High sends back his supposed Hebrew son, who suffered death on Calvary now. Watch that. Men killed him. So men killed your God. Men killed your Savior. Is that saving? You don't get it? The reason why he did not save you in AD 33 was because he did not save himself. Was because nobody saved him. But the opposite of saving happened to him. They killed him. He died. So he couldn't save anybody anymore. So he just came out of the grave because his father supposedly raised him up. So he just zipped back up to heaven because he failed the mission of delivering. Because Luke chapter 1 verse 6 and 7 to the end talks about him being sent to deliver. So since he himself got killed, he couldn't pull off the deliverance, so he just quietly zipped back up to heaven, and they just watched him go up, while the angels gave them another lemon story that this same Jesus you see going up in the clouds will come back again. Hebrew Israelites are so gullible. Every time your supposed Savior comes and they kill him, they tell you, just wait, he'll be back in another 1,000 years. Oh, we just need another prophecy to renew our faith, to renew our belief that he's coming back again. We can't see how gullible we are. But what's so special about heaven, though, that the New Testament tries to sell us? Heaven is just part of a fairy tale. That's why I call the fairy tale book, the FT, not the New Testament book, the FT, fairy tale book. Why do you want to go to heaven when you have no guarantee of a better life in heaven? Imagine, the same thing has happened here on earth that happened in heaven. Indigenous people are just living in their land, nice and sweet, going down by the riverside, and they're doing whatever, and they're meditating, and they're picking their fruits and eating. They're cooking their breadfruit and their plantains and coconuts and so on, the food of the gods and so on, and they're just nice, peaceful. One day an army comes with some swords and some crosses and starts killing them. Major warfare, and they're destroyed. What do the people normally do who survive? They run from that area, they flee. The ones who are able to flee. They don't want to stay there. They don't want to go there, they just disappear. Who can escape gets slaughtered or enslaved right there. So now, picture this. According to New Testament believers, both Hebrew and otherwise Christian, they tell you things are going on for eons and eons in heaven, peaceful and nice, angels singing songs in heaven and worshiping nice and doing whatever else they do up there. Probably just building flaming swords and building new vials to pour out prayers, because that's all they seem to have in heaven. There's two kinds of technology, a vase to pour out stuff in, and swords. But it's peaceful and nice up in there, a very peaceful place, but they're building all kinds of swords for angels to just have. You're telling me heaven is not a vicious place, the source of war? Warfare in heaven. That's what swords are about. War on earth came from heaven. Heaven is a place you should hate. But the New Testament sells you a lemon doctrine telling you to desire heaven. Imagine peaceful as ever. Like the indigenous people, a lot of times, you read the story that they weren't a warring people. And that's how the conquerors came and was able to kill them off. You know, they might have some sharpened kind of stuff to just do basic defense, the animals coming at them, or to pick their fruits and so on, things like that, or catch fish and little things like that. But they weren't like building weapons of mass destruction to just kill and slash people by the millions and millions. But heaven has angels building swords, or at least carrying swords. And instead of confining the evil of their weaponry to their domain, heaven, where people were living, the first people, in a peaceful garden of Eden, even though Eden is fake as well. But angels around the throne and presence of God gets spirited by the awesome aroma and presence, loving presence of God, and takes their sword and come down to Eden and introduces flaming swords to the peaceful garden. Instead of taking their swords and slashing the serpent, killing him and getting rid of the one who brought the temptation, they presented the sword as a weapon that would threaten the man and the woman. And they felt the threat so strong that they never tried to re-enter the garden. If they thought it was safe to enter, they would have tried to sneak back through the bushes. Instead, the shock and the horror of the indigenous people of the garden saw the swords and decided there's no way in hell, or rather no way in heaven, I'm going back in that garden. Because heaven's swords now changed Eden. You see, when you sin, they tell you come back to church and come to the altar and pray. If you're a Hebrew Israelite in the Torah days, you sin, you go to the priest, or you go offer sacrifice and so on, so you get back to the temple. So you go back to the place that can destroy you with its laws, because it's the same place that can heal you. But the place of God's presence, where he walked in Eden, Adam and Eve don't bother go back there, because angels changed it to make it a place of threat. If you come in here again, we're going to kill you. See our swords? Because the angels kept them out as their eyes, the eyes of Adam and Eve, looked at those cherubim with flaming swords, and they did not see angels, they saw demons. Because those demons had flaming swords. They're like, there's no way we're going back in there. But the New Testament tries to get you to believe in heaven, where these angels, they have swords up there fighting, and it's not like they made the swords just for Adam and Eve. They seem to have had a warring culture that we don't have Bibles to tell us about that, like some pre-Torah writing. Because apparently there was war in heaven before, and the New Testament tells you that they were fighting up there and they got kicked out and so on. So man is not responsible for sin, and the serpent in Eden was not responsible for sin. Sin already happened in heaven. The first place sin happened was in heaven, according to what the New Testament will tell us. But the same New Testament tries to get you to try to go up in a rapture to heaven. Even Hebrews say Jerusalem will restore for 1,000 years and then we go to heaven afterwards. Hebrew Israelite doctrine for some of them, some camps. But the first place in the cosmos that war is known, that dissension, that rejection of God's laws, is not in Eden with Eve and then Adam rejecting the Creator's laws, rejecting peace, and so on. The first place where peace was rejected, where peace was spoiled, and where war broke out and a rejection of God happened is in heaven, right under God's nose, so to speak, right in his domain, in his territory. Angels sinned. They brought sin into creation. Because we say the angels were created. And some of these teachers say that God created Jesus and he created the angels and everything else. So then Jesus is responsible for creating the first beings on earth that introduced sin in the cosmos. Or I guess he created them in heaven or wherever he created the angels. So Jesus' track record, his profile includes that he is responsible for creating a set of demigods called angels that introduced evil, sin, transgression in the cosmos. And you believe in Jesus? The source of sin, the place where it happened first, heaven. Michael and his archangels fought, they tell us, and you are trying to die to go to heaven. Heaven does not have anything for us that earth does not have. Really, is it more peaceful there? The greatest war broke out in heaven. The greatest war. The angels, some of them, they tell us, decided God was not worth it. So they revolted against his set-apartness. They rejected his Torah, godness and wisdom. And they fought and caused a war. And some of the angels fought back against them. But when angels can reject your sovereignty, your God rulership, makes me wonder, why is heaven any better? Because there are people fighting against rulers and kings down here, assassinating presidents and prime ministers and kings of ancient times and so on. What happens on earth happens in heaven. Why is it a better place? But they tell you Elijah went to heaven to make it sound nice. Enoch went there to make it sound nice. Maybe all of those too, because most of the Israelites were in a rush to try to go to heaven, because it's not like there's anything extra up there that we really, what if war breaks out again up there? Who's going to protect us? Well, I guess the rest of the other angels, the New Testament would make you think. Now let's look at Matthew chapter 5 and verse 48. It says, "Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect." Not only is it letting you know that the Father is perfect, but it has the connotation of heaven itself being perfect, which, as I just shared, heaven cannot possibly be perfect. But they had a singing in the Christian church, songs made up by our captors and people who have ravaged and damaged the earth. They made up the songs to go with the religion, the Christ religion, talking about heaven is a holy place. And I can't remember the rest of it, but it says something like that. But basically it's going on to say things like heaven is a holy place, it's a perfect place and so on. And no sin can enter there and so on, because it's perfect, it's a holy place. But how perfect is it when things can go wrong? So if you're trying to get away from earth, what is there to guarantee you that the war that broke out before, or some hatred and evil that led to the war, caused the war, will not happen again? You see, you have to get it in your mind that the God of the Torah and the Jesus of the Torah, or let's just deal with God then, keep it simpler, has not done anything in his track record to show that he has any kind of people, whether they're Hebrew Israelites or anybody else, or Christians or anybody else, has not done anything to show that he has worked with any kind of living beings who he can keep safe always. So perfection when you get to heaven is a lemon doctrine. Because he had perfect angels, we are told, but they sinned, revolted against him, started a war. War broke out in heaven. And then they came down here and continued the war, and he has struggled for thousands of years to reverse what they started on earth, the evil they started. So God has not reversed the angelic evil that happened in his domain in heaven. Because we hear in some apocryphal writing that they are held upside down in some abyss, and they have to stay like that with the blood rushing to their head. And apparently, after all these thousands of years or millions of years, they still can't die yet. So the rest of us should be scared. What if they ever find a way to break loose and turn right side up again? We're done for. Because the 1/3 they tell us came down here and has wreaked havoc on earth. Even though we can't see them and we can't verify them, and some of them are held upside down and so on, so the few that's left running around has done all this damage to earth. What if a couple of them just get loose? They're already down here. But God has not been able to redeem these angels. They tell you it's because he doesn't want to redeem them. They were too perfect. So he's not going to offer them salvation. So apparently he'll send his son to die for you, but he won't pay a penny to die for one of them, one of these angels. So because they were too perfect, so to sin after you are perfect, there's no salvation for you. So why are you trying to get perfect? Where Jesus is telling you to be perfect like the Father. It's better if you not be perfect and sin and transgress sometimes. Because when you look lowly and sinful like that, you can still have the good graces of the Father. Because you can repent again and move on with your life. But if you slip into perfection, then you transgress, God don't want to have nothing to do with you anymore. That's what that New Testament doctrine teaches me. It's better if you just have some sin in your life. See, the New Testament is fake, it's fishy, it's weak in its teachings. So he has not proven to all existence that he could restore the angels, because then we can believe this God can restore us. That's why people are getting ready to fight and go to war. You have all these kinds of movements happening and people planning resistance and so on. Now you're hearing about the Silicon Valley people and other elite of the world planning to hide in bunkers in Sweden and other places when the war breaks out, because they know people are going to revolt against them, because people are mad that they're ruining the earth, you know, like the few rich that run the earth and everybody else is suffering. So they're getting ready for a revolt one day. But God does nothing to reverse this evil that was started supposedly by the angels, even by the supposed master angel called Satan in the Garden of Eden. He has also not shown in his track record that he can restore the Hebrews, because every time he says he restored them back to their land, they sin again and they start killing each other again, and then he called other people from other armies to come and kill them further. God has not demonstrated to earth or to his Hebrews that he can have angels or men come to a place where they're all right again and they're fully restored properly. They always go back to evil. God doesn't know how to run earth, and he sure don't know how to run heaven, since war started in heaven. So why are you trying to go to heaven? Because the lemon doctrine of the New Testament makes you believe in heaven. The New Testament is fake. War on earth is just mimicking the war that happened in heaven according to the fake New Testament doctrine. Heaven is no more desirable than earth. Matthew chapter 6, verse 19 and 20. Here now, Jesus speaking, he says, lay up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. So Jesus is teaching you to not trust in earth. Where the Creator placed the man and the woman in the garden, letting them trust in earth for their sustenance. They could live and thrive on earth. Jesus tells you, don't bother trust in this. But people are fighting wars even till today. Africa trying to fight back. Because they'd rather trust in an Africa on earth that is better for their people than try to dream of going to a heaven they know nothing about, where war started. Verse 20, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. The New Testament has the Son of God telling you to lay up your treasures in heaven. I guess he means your spiritual treasures. But the spirituality in heaven was already compromised when angels rejected the set-apart holiness of God's spiritual treasures and wisdom and so on. Moth, thieves, rust do not break through and destroy all the stuff in heaven. So whatever happens in heaven will remain like that. It will not be affected. It will not be threatened in any kind of way. But angels, according to the New Testament, already damaged heaven. And Jesus says that's where you need to lay up your treasures. Are you getting the picture yet? That heaven is a lemon doctrine taught by the New Testament? Thieves don't break through and steal. But angels broke through the peaceful, quiet, holy, just presence of God in heaven, disturbing the other angels, supposedly, who wanted to keep the peace and live in perfection and righteousness for all eternity. Those angels had never fought before, had never resorted to violence before, as far as we know. But other angels made holy angels fight and go into war and kill or attempt to kill. And while it doesn't quite say kill, as far as I know, they must have killed some, is what I would think. Because everything in the Bible is about how man thinks, since man wrote it and no God wrote it. And every time there's war, people get killed. So the reason why they have flaming swords, because they're having more powerful swords than man has to kill the powerful. Just like when you're watching Superman or these superhero movies, they put them against superhuman creatures as well, so that they can be on the same level and one of them can get killed. So angels would have killed other angels, and who survived got kicked out. So as far as I'm concerned, killing would have happened in heaven. But none of that stuff, according to Jesus, broke through in heaven. Thieves and so on don't break through in heaven. Moth and rust does not corrupt. And since he's talking about your spiritual treasures to be hidden there, he's saying your spiritual treasures will not be corrupted in heaven. But the spiritual peace and the spiritual longevity of righteousness and holiness not being tarnished and so on. And the spiritual laws that keep unity in heaven. was corrupted by the angels that fought when war happened in heaven. But Jesus said, nothing will be corrupted there in heaven. Lay up your spiritual treasures there. It will not be corrupted. New Testament is fake. Your righteousness is corrupted on earth when an army comes and takes over your temple and kills you and kills your priests and so on. And, like they're saying, Alexander Epiphanes, he came and he smeared pig's blood in the temple of the Hebrews, desecrated the temple and so on. Why? He broke through the norms of what was going on and he desecrated stuff. Well, he interfered with their religious performance and lifestyle. When war broke out and brought dissension and hatred in heaven, that corrupted the perfect vision of heaven that we have been taught that heaven has. Like heaven was incapable of descending in war. That is a lie. Because if according to the New Testament war happened in heaven, then heaven is a place where war and hatred and evil can happen. Because when you fight war, it's because hatred and war is in your heart. So hate happened in heaven before it happened on earth, because angels hated God and hated righteousness, hated peace, and hate came from heaven. Hate came from heaven. War came from heaven. So when Jesus says the corruption cannot happen in heaven, so place your treasures there, Jesus of the New Testament was a liar. Since he made the angels and everything else, like you teach in the New Testament groups, that means Jesus made even heaven itself, everything that's in it. So all the swords, the sword building machines and whatever they have up there, Jesus made all that possible, according to you, Messianic people. So Jesus would have known that the war happened there because he made the angels. So his angels defected, some of them. And even if he somehow had not been around at first, but was made after the angels, he would have still have learned from his father that angels fought right here in heaven. He'd be like, what? Right here in heaven? So Jesus knows that corruption and hatred lived in heaven. And even with Job, it says the sons of God were coming to meet with the Most High. And Satan also presented himself. So he's going back to heaven because that's where God was meeting them. Right? Maybe not in some of the deeper inner recesses of heaven where all the fancy mysteries are. But at some level of heaven, like Apostle Paul said he went to different levels of heaven, in some way Satan went back to heaven with the sons of God that supposedly have to report every morning, like in Genesis 32 when the angel hit the thigh of Jacob and said, look man, I gotta go, it's the breaking of day. So basically Jesus was lying in Matthew 6:19 and 20 when he said corruption does not happen in heaven. If Israel got into hatred, like the Most High cursed them about that they're fighting with each other and so on, and they're sleeping with their neighbors' wives and blah, 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 and they're not doing the sacrifices right and different things like that, so their righteousness and their holiness and their Torah is corrupted, and they corrupted the Sabbaths and so on. All that whole system right there in the land is corrupted with the Hebrews, and they had to do sacrifices and repent. So if the righteousness and the whole system of holiness is corrupted in heaven, by what the angels did when they fought war, heaven was corrupted before man was placed on earth. But Jesus, the Son of God, and for some who is actually God, tells you in the New Testament that corruption does not happen in heaven. Jesus and the New Testament, the fairy testament, is fake. Crushing the New Testament once more of the Roman Hebrew Empire. The Roman Hebrew book has been crushed and checkmated once again.